In a previous episode, we talked about the 1898 Spanish-American War. This war saw the first real assertion of American global influence, where they grabbed Spanish colonies in the Caribbean and the Philippines in the Pacific. But the island had already been in war for some years prior, and in this episode we'll be looking at this conflict, the Filipino Revolution. Spain had administered the Philippines for over 300 years at this point, and the troubles brewing back at home brought trouble to the outlying colony. The once colony-rich nation had lost its vast American provinces in the early 19th century, and never really recovered from the war and loss of revenue. Following this, Spain heavily increased development in the Philippines, building large amounts of infrastructure such as railroads, regular roads, canals, bridges, etc., as well as working towards boosting the economic output of the islands. This was massively helped by a colonial government that worked towards improving the lives of the citizens, rather than a purely exploitative focus. The Philippines were granted semi-home rule in the early 1870s. Through the Education Decree of December of 1863, Queen Isabel II decreed the establishment of a free public school system in the islands, leading to increasing numbers of educated Filipinos. Additionally, the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 cut travel time to Spain significantly, leading to an increase of native Filipinos that were able to study in Spanish and European universities. Revolutionary sentiment arose in 1872 after 3 Filipino priests were executed on charges of sedition and supposed aid during the uprising the same year. This started the propaganda movement, where many native Filipinos were calling for reform if not outright independence from Spain. Written works during this movement, Marcelo Estiplera, Garcia Lopezana, and Jose Rizal sounded the trumpets of Filipino nationalism and brought it to the masses. Various societies had been established in the islands already that clamored for reform, and membership soared as anti-Spanish pieces were read more and more. The Katipunan, which would be the society to spark the revolution, were the strongest organization that removed the ideal of Spanish reform and desired outright independence for the island. The organization reached an overwhelming membership, largely from the arrest and deportation of Jose Rizal in July of 1892. For a few years, the Katipunan continued to grow in size, and it managed to get both financial and armed support from sympathy groups all across the world. On August the 19th of 1896, Spanish authorities confirmed that the Katipunan existed, and arrested and/or imprisoned hundreds of people for treason. With a crackdown looming, the head of the organization, Andres Bonifacio, declared a nationwide armed revolution against Spain and called for the attack on the capital Manila on August the 29th. He also established the Taglan Republic from within the organization, with himself acting as president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Bonifacio personally led an attack on San Juan de Multa on the 30th, with the intent to capture the town's powder magazine and water station. The defending Spaniards, who were outnumbered, fought a delayed battle until reinforcements arrived. Once reinforced, the Spanish drove Bonifacio's forces back with heavy casualties. By December, 3 provinces housed the main rebellion: Cavite under Emilio Anguinado, Bulacan under Mariano Linera, and Moran under Bonifacio. By this time, friction began to develop within the provisional government, primarily between Bonifacio and Emilio and their respective supporters. On March the 22nd of the following year, the men met at Tejeros, where they called for an election to be held to establish the leadership position of the government. Bonifacio at first was in full agreement, and stated that the election results were to be trusted, which all changed when Emilio was elected as leader. Calling the election null and void, he stomped out and established his own rival government. Actions taken by him, mainly the burning of Lindon, drove Emilio to call for his arrest on April the 27th, with him being executed on May the 10th. At the same time, reinforcements from Spain started to push the rebellion back, and some followers of Bonifacio refused to grant military aid directly towards the rebellion after his death. The Filipinos were gradually pushed back, and the following months peace talks between the two sides started, and were finished by December in the Pagkabiak Number 2 on the following terms. The terms being the surrender of all weapons of the revolutionaries, amnesty for those who participated in the revolution, exile of the revolutionary leadership, and payment by the Spanish government of 400,000 in pesos to the revolutionary. While this was agreed and Emilio and 8 others were exiled to Hong Kong, local revolutionary leaders refused the pact and kept fighting the Spanish. Emilio himself didn't truly believe what the Spanish stated in the pact, and while in exile, he did what he could to gather arms and supplies for the rebels in the Philippines. He would come back less than 1 year later, shortly after the start of the Spanish-American War. But the aftermath of that will be covered in a future video.